May of last year, I traveled to Russia for the first time since I had been when it was the Soviet Union. Um, and the purpose of the trip was to promote a dialogue between Russians and Americans to try and revive the, uh, the spirit of arms control that existed when I was a weapons inspector in the former Soviet Union implementing the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty. It was also designed to educate an American audience about the reality of Russia so that they could be empowered with knowledge and information to overcome the disease of Russophobia that has gripped this country. It was an ambitious trip. I think 12 cities in 26 days. And it was successful to an extent. First of all, it was the first time I had done it. I think that I captured the imagination of some people, but not enough. And it was also, I was feeling out the Russians. They weren't sure what to make of this former intelligence officer who, was commended by the CIA director twice for his work in the former Soviet Union. They're like, well, once a spy, always a spy, dude. Why should we let you back in here? Why should we trust you? And so I had to earn their trust and made good progress in that regard. But it was an incomplete trip. There was still things that needed to be done. And so in December of last year, extending into January, I returned. And one of the goals and objectives of that return was to continue the work that had been started in May of 2023, and also to look at Russia from a cultural and spiritual perspective to try and understand that. I was there during their New Year, a big holiday for them. I was there during their Orthodox Christmas. I was there during winter. And of course, winter is its own phenomena in Russia that has to be experienced. I also needed to see the territories in dispute, the territories of controversy. I call it Russia's path to redemption. It starts in Chechnya, which, of course, I've mentioned the two wars that were fought there. The concept of the Chechens, a Muslim people, peacefully living with Russians and Orthodox Christian people after what had been done during the Chechen conflict, it boggles the mind. People would say there's no way that the Chechens and Russians could ever again peacefully coexist. And yet, when I went to Chechnya, there they were, peacefully coexisting, people at peace with one another. It's the Chechen miracle. And I had the opportunity to meet with Chechen leaders, to meet with the Chechen people, meet with Russian leaders, and talk about this. I met with Ramzan Kadyrov, the head of the Chechen Republic. He gave me a unique opportunity to speak to 25,000 members of the Chechen, the Grozny garrison, all assembled in one place, an impromptu talk, which will go down in history as one of the most, just one of the strangest moments of my adult life. And I've had many strange moments in my adult life, but this one was right up there. A good moment, but very, it's a unique experience to say the least. But then I went on to Crimea. I met with the governor of Crimea, talked about what had been happening since 2014, talked about what led up to 2014, and then Crimea joining or rejoining Russia, the work that he's doing to rebuild the Crimean economy during a time of war, the priorities, the role of the Crimean Tatar population. Got to be hosted by a Crimean Tatar family, wonderful people. Then I went to the new territories, Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Lugansk. These are territories in conflict. There's a war going on, and I was able to some degree, bear firsthand witness to aspects of the war. I have to say that the Russian leadership was not thrilled about me going there. They were very concerned that a 62-year-old former Marine might think that he has what it takes to go to the front lines and do frontline reporting. And they didn't want to have to deal with the headline that said Scott Ritter killed in Zaporizhia. So they did their best to keep me away from the front line, and they were successful. And in retrospect, it was the absolute right thing to do. I'm not a war correspondent. I'm an analyst, and I was able to collect the information I needed to collect to enhance my analytical abilities when it comes to the new territories without putting myself or, more importantly, others at risk. But it was an important trip to make. And I thought at the end of that trip that I had enough now to complete the task of the Waging Peace mission, which is to produce a documentary film that captures this experience in a way that can better inform the American public. But then Tucker Carlson went and interviewed Vladimir Putin, which was a big coup for him. A billion people watched. But the thing that got me was when he tried to explain Russia to the American people. There was nothing that he said that was inaccurate, but the pushback from many people was, "Hey, Tucker, that's Moscow. Of course that's a nice city because the Russians put all their money into Moscow. But there's a real Russia out there that you're not seeing, that's different, that's devastated, economically depressed and all that." And I went, if I don't tackle the real Russia issue, then this is going to be a failed project. Even though in May of last year, when I went to 12 cities, if the two big cities of Russia are Moscow and St. Petersburg, that implies I went to 10 cities that weren't named Moscow and St. Petersburg. And I already said the two of the cities I went to, Ekaterinburg and Novosibirsk, are economically developed cities. So that's 4. That means I went to 8 cities that aren't Moscow, St. Petersburg, Ekaterinburg, or Novosibirsk. So there's a little bit of the real Russia there, but not enough. So this trip is about going to see Russia from the Pacific Ocean to the Baltic Sea and everything in between. And I think we're going to 16 different cities on a 40-day tour. It starts off at St. Petersburg, at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, to try and capture what's going on, just so the people know what I'm talking about. The St. Petersburg International Economic Forum is the Russian/Global South's equivalent of Davos. So every year, the Western elite gather in Davos and sit there and pretend how important they are. The difference between St. Petersburg and Davos is that the people that attend St. Petersburg don't have to pretend how important they are. They are important. They are the movers and shakers, the real movers and shakers. St. Petersburg will be a very important springboard to the BRICS summit that'll be hosted by Russia in the city of Kazan in October. Kazan was one of the cities that I visited in May, by the way. So I plan to be there to capture that because I plan on being in Kazan in October to understand this as well. But that just sets the stage then for the meat of the trip, the journey that takes me from the Pacific Ocean to the Baltic and everything in between. I can't give a detailed itinerary because, unfortunately, the Ukrainian government has me on at least 3 separate lists, 2 of which want me dead. And they have actively tried to act on that during my travels to Russia. So as part of our effort to maintain security, we don't broadcast where we're going to go and into it in advance. We'll let people know at the appropriate time beforehand so that we can maximize our exposure in Russia, but minimize the potential of bad things happening, hopefully not giving the Ukrainians a chance to adapt. But we will be I have a podcast called Ask the Inspector. We're taking Ask the Inspector to Russia. It's basically called the Russia Tour. And we will be broadcasting the podcast from these various Russian locations, interviewing Russians. We'll be going out into the town, into the region, and capturing that. Again, in support of a documentary that will be made, we're bringing a very good documentarian film crew that's going to be capturing this. And when you combine that with the previous film that I have from May and from the winter, we will have some very nice visuals that we hopefully can tie together in a compelling narrative. But we'll also be producing short 5 to 7 minute videos from each place we go, just to keep everybody updated. This is what we did. This is what we see. We're trying to bring Russia to your home, to your family, to educate you, to inform you. We're going to be implementing a pen pal program as part of this, so that every city we go to, we have an American family identified. We will enable them to link up with a Russian family to begin a video pen pal process where we go hands-free once that's done. The whole idea is just to get Americans talking to Russians. No agenda, nothing, just start talking. And then once that happens, you see that the barriers can be broken down. I liken this trip, I say that it's in the in the tradition of Van Cliburn, this famous Texan pianist who went to Russia, the Soviet Union in 1958, won the Tchaikovsky Music Festival, and in doing so won the hearts of the Russians, came back and got Americans and Russians to start talking together during the Cold War. Now, the Cold War continued, but then Samantha Smith, this young 11-year-old girl, wrote a letter to Yuri Andropov in 1982 saying she didn't want to die in nuclear war. And he said he didn't want to die either. He had invited her to Russia, and she went in the summer of 1983, and she toured Russia, met the Russians, began this correspondence. So this trip is in the spirit of Samantha Smith, in the spirit of Van Cliburn. It's designed to generate the kind of dialogue that has to occur between people. This isn't about usurping American policy objectives. That's politics. That's between the Russian government and the American government. This is about laying the foundation so that we can conceive of a moment in time where Americans and Russians can peacefully coexist, where we're not worried about going to nuclear war with one another, where we've empowered our respective populations with enough knowledge and information so that they aren't susceptible to the fear that is sourced from ignorance. Ignorance is the enemy. We're trying to have the antidote for ignorance by informing people about the reality of Russia. The Real Russia Tour, that's what's taking place. It starts on June 1st, finishes on July 20th. And, I'm hoping that as many people as possible will tune in, watch the podcast, look at the videos, and become empowered by the information that we're trying to impart about the reality of Russia. And in doing so, when you open a door, it's a two-way street. Yes, we'll be bringing information out for the American public, but we're also bringing America to Russia. We're literally citizen ambassadors who will be going from city to city, from region to region, meeting people. And in many cases, we might be the first Americans these people have met. And so, we're going to be exposing them to the reality of America, to who Americans are, and through the pen pal process, sustaining that connectivity. So I'm excited about the project. And, if anybody wants to support, you can go to scottritter.com. There's a support button there. I can guarantee you that any donation you make will not go to waste. 45 days is it's an expensive endeavor, and we want to do it right. In order to do it right, we do need funding support. But we have enough money to get this thing off the ground and get it going and complete the mission if necessary. But any additional money helps us increase the quality of the product, so to speak.
Very cool. Very cool. I mean, I'm glad you are going to Russia and doing this. I mean, every time I go to China, I try to also, it takes a while, especially in shorter trips, to build a foundation where you even just know the place enough. So and in countries as big as Russia and China, it takes a while. So this is an incredible trip. I'm definitely looking forward to all of your coverage, all that you find, all that you impart. And yes, everyone go to scottritterextra.com so you can support.
Just Ritter.com. Yes. We actually bought the domain. So ScottRitter.com.
I'm so used to saying Scott Ritter Extra.
I know.
ScottRitter.com. It's in the video description as the correct URL. So definitely be sure to check that out. Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.